In this demonstration, I'm going to configure an on-premises Windows L2TP IPsec VPN. Here in Windows Server 2016, I'm going to take a look at my network interfaces. So from the Start menu, I'll click Control Panel, then I'll click Network and Internet, and then I'll click Network and Sharing Center. On the left, I'll click Change Adapter Settings, and I have a private and a public network adapter. Let's close this down and let's open up a command prompt, CMD. In the command prompt, I'm going to type ipconfig. And here on my server, I've got a private IP address as well as a public interface with a different public IP. So let's close out of the command prompt. Now I'm going to start Server Manager on that same host to install the routing and remote access components required for a VPN. So I'm going to click Add Roles and Features. Then I'll click Next. And I'll click Next again for this server. And on the Select Server Role screen, I'm going to put a check mark to the left of Remote Access. And then I'll click Next again. On the Feature screen, I'll click Next. And I'll click Next on the Remote Access screen. I'm going to turn on Direct Access and VPN. Then it pops up with some other required dependency components that it needs to install, which is fine. I want to install this, so I guess I have to do this, which is good. I'll click Add Features. And then I'll click Next. I'll click Next on the IIS web server. And now I can see the role services for that component, which is great. And finally, I'll click Install to install routing and remote access. And I'll close that when the installation is completed. Now from the Start menu, I'm going to go under my Windows Administrative Tools and fire up Active Directory Users and Computers. I've already created a group in the Halifax OU here. The group is called Halifax VPN Users. I've got a user called User1. If I look at the members of the Halifax VPN users, indeed, User1 is a member. Okay, let's cancel out of that. That's going to be important a little bit later. Back into the Start menu, I'm going to go back into Server Manager. And then I'm going to go to the Tools menu. I could have gone to the Start menu to do this as well. I'm going to fire up Routing and Remote Access. And then I'll just maximize that window, and I'll right-click on the server name on the left and choose Configure and enable Routing and Remote Access. I'll choose Next. I want to configure this as a VPN remote access device, so I'll leave that and click Next. And then I'll turn on the check mark for VPN. I'll click Next. There are my private and public interfaces with the corresponding IP addresses, and it's going to enable some packet filters on the public interface I've selected, so I'll click Next. For the IP address assignment for VPN clients, I'm going to choose from a specified range of addresses, and I'll choose Next. And on the Address Range Assignment screen, I'm going to have to specify it by clicking New. So I'm going to set the starting IP to 10.1.1.100, and the ending IP will assign to 10.1.1.150. Then I'll click OK. And I'll click Next. I'm not using a centralized radius server, so I'll leave it on No, and then I'll click Next again. On the summary screen, I'll click Finish. I'll choose OK on the DHCP relay message. I don't have to worry about that since everything I'm using is on the same subnet. And now it's starting the routing and remote access service. After that's done, over on the left, I can see I have options. I'm going to right-click on my server and choose Properties. And here I'm going to go under Security. The Windows Authentication is enabled here as opposed to Radius, and if I click Authentication Methods, I've got options for encrypted authentication through CHAP and so on. I'm going to cancel that. However, I do want to allow custom IPsec policy settings for L2TP. So I'm going to fill in a pre-shared key in this example. It'll just be a variation of the word password. And I'm not going to use an SSL VPN config here, just L2TP IK. And then I'll go up and click on the IPv4 tab. Here we can see this is the static address pool we've configured for our clients. I've also got some IKv2 timeout settings. I'm not going to change those, so I'll just go ahead and click on OK. And it says I need to restart running remote access. Okay. So I'm going to right click on my server on the left again, and I'll choose all tasks, and then from there I'll choose restart. Over on the left, I can right click on the ports. Well, first, if I left click on them, we can see all of the SSTP or the SSL VPN ports, and further down other ones. If I right click and go into properties, we can see that we've got 128 of most of these ports by default, including L2TP. I could click configure when I select one to control the maximum number of ports. That would be one for each connected VPN client. However, I'm not going to change it, and I'll just cancel out of all these screens. I'm now going to go to the Tools menu and choose Network Policy Server, because I need to control or determine who is allowed to connect through the VPN. The default is nobody. Let me maximize this screen. And over on the left, I'm going to drill down under Policies, and I'll click Network Policies. I'll right-click on Network Policies and choose New. I'm going to make a policy here called Allow Inbound HFX VPN Connections. And for the type of network access server, I'll choose Remote Access Server VPN Dial-Up, and I'll choose Next. This is where I have to specify conditions. So I'm going to click the Add button. I want to specify my user group that I had shown earlier, so I'll click Add Groups. It's going to be the Halifax VPN users group, so I'll click Check Names. There's the group, and I'll click OK and Next. And I want to make sure that access is granted to members of that group. I could also change the authentication methods from this screen if I so chose. I could click Add, perhaps enable Smart Card or PKI certificate authentication, but I'm not going to do that. I'll cancel out, and I'll click Next. I also have some timeout options, such as disconnect after the maximum idle time. So this is for how long the server can remain idle, so I can control that value, as well as individual user session. So I can say disconnect after the following maximum session time, whether or not that we've got idle connectivity. It just kills the session, in this case after 60 minutes. I've also got day and time restrictions I could specify when the VPN is accessible. So I'm just going to continue through this and accept these settings, and I'll click Finish. So now I've got a new policy that controls who is allowed to connect. So now here in Windows 10, I'm going to go to my Start menu and type ipconfig. And I can see my IP address is a public IP, just like the VPN server's public interface. So I'm going to go to the Start menu again and pull up the Network and Sharing Center. And from here, I'm going to choose Set up a new connection. And it's going to be Connect to a Workplace, and then I'll choose Next. I'll choose Use My Internet Connection VPN. It doesn't think I have one. I'll just say I'll configure it later. And I'll put in the public IP address of the VPN server, and I'm going to call this connection Work VPN. It's always a bad idea to remember VPN credentials, so I'll uncheck that, and I'll click Create. Over on the left, if I go to Change Adapter Settings, I'll see a new virtual adapter, in this case called Work VPN, and it's disconnected, of course. I'm going to right-click on it and choose Properties. Then I'm going to go under Options, where I could choose to remember my credentials, but I don't want that. Under Security, for the type of VPN, I'm going to choose Layer 2 Tunneling Protocol with IPsec. And I'm going to have to click Advanced Settings because I need to specify the pre-shared key we configured on the server, which is a variation of the word password. So I'll just enter that in here, and I'll click OK. I can also specify which protocols are allowed down below, like Microsoft Chat. And up under networking, I can deselect the items I don't want, like IPv6 and file printer sharing. If I double click on IPv4, I can also control the IP address settings. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now if I double click on that icon, I can see that I can add VPN connections. I can see my Work VPN. So if I select that, I can go to Advanced Options. And from here, if I need to, I can make some changes to the server IP address or to VPN proxy settings and so on. I don't need to change any of those. So I'm just going to go back here, and for the Work VPN, I'll click the Connect button. Now I'm going to log in as user 1, who is a member of that allowed Halifax VPN users group. And I'll fill in the password, and that's it. I am now connected. We also have the option of disconnecting. So if I go to a command prompt on this VPN client now and type ipconfig, what we're going to see is that we've got a PPP, point-to-point protocol adapter with a private IP address for the VPN.